Welcome back to the Perfect Lab Podcast. I'm Mark Jager. This is Mark Kilgore. He goes by Kilgore. I go by Jager. And today we have Chris Willard, Redline Time Attack co-founder and Time Attack pioneer of rules and basically how we know Time Attack in North America today. Chris Willard, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Jaeger. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're going to get into it, guys. We're going to be talking about how Time Attack really got started. So we're going to be looking at the early 2000s, how that really jump-started the Time Attack saga in North America, and we're going to talk it through. And we're going to be talking it through with a man who's been there, done that, talked about it, seen it, heard it, built it. What was your journey like? What was the starting point?
Well, I just wanted to go to the track and race my car and drive around the track and just tune it up like crazy. We had no timing systems back then. We didn't even have corner workers at the track. We just had basically the streets of Willow Springs, which was just a little ribbon of asphalt in the desert. And I somehow convinced the owner to let us bring a bunch of people there and start driving around. And I'm surprised they let us do it, to be quite honest. I think maybe they were hard up for extra cash, but they let us do it. And we just started going out there. And I think the first time we went out there was like 1999. We just 20, 30 of us grabbed our little Honda Civic hatches and we went out there. We started racing around in circles and, to the dismay of the Porsche Club and BMW Club guys at the time, because that's all that was at Streets of Willow. There's just, rich guys driving their fancy Ferraris and Porsches around the track. And then all of a sudden they let us hoonigans in with our little Civics and Celicas and whatnot. And we just started from there. And we just went to have fun. And we grew a company called Redline Track Events. And we started hosting track events in 2000, 2001. And we just started making a more organized, track event system that started to cater more towards safety and regulations and stuff because, people were flipping their cars and stuff. And we thought, well, we better start figuring out how to make this a little more of a safer venue or nobody's going to come to the track anymore. So we started, safety rules, driver meetings, and, we started coning the track and, it turned into more of a legitimate organization with Redline Track Events.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it was great. It was
what
great.
we think of now, right? Like you go to the track.
Yeah, exactly.
Weekend, and that's what you're looking at you're looking at drivers meeting, coned up tracks, someone cares about your safety, but it's your problem. So you got to figure it out and go have some fun, drive around the track, learn a little bit how to drive.
Exactly. Mark, you know the deal. You've been doing it for years too. I just went to a track event a couple of weeks ago and it was great. There was no competition. It was just a friendly atmosphere, and people were just having fun. You got a car. You love to drive it. You like to put some sticky tires on it, do some modifications. You want to put a suspension on it. You want to drive it, and the only way to do that is really at a controlled racetrack. So it's still a lot of fun. I still do
Chris,
myself.
late 90s, early 2000s. What was your track weapon of choice?
I started with I had a 2000. This is the first new car I ever bought too. It was a 2000 Toyota Celica GTS. It's a front wheel drive. It had 180 horsepower. It was sort of like I think Toyota was trying to make a Honda like car. It was a front wheel drive, had a VVT engine and sort of like a VTEC kind of component to it. And that was my first car that I drove. And then I went through many after that.
I mean, it is kind of crazy.
That was the first one, front wheel drive.
Like literally in a few years, Chris, you're talking about something that you started doing, 30 years ago?
Well, I guess just about almost close to it. Yeah. Almost
Like
30 years ago. Good God. Was it that long ago? I thought it was like 10 years ago, man.
I mean, it is absolutely insane when you actually sit back and think about that. I mean, I know similar kind of things hit me sometimes where you're sitting there and you're just going, holy crap, it's been a decade or two. So that's always kind of an interesting way to think about things sometimes is that's been a long time. So now you got Redline track events. We're doing
Right.
track events now. We're taking the Celica to the track, having a good time with our friends, having a good time with some new patrons, making new friends.
Sure.
So where did your inspiration come from to the thought? Where did Time Attack? When did it hit you?
So it was a conglomeration of things. Hanging out with people at the track, and back then, it was new to everybody. There was you were surrounded by a bunch of people who were just there just for the pure exhilaration of the sport, just like it is today. But you start talking to new people, you start getting new ideas, you start thinking about how to make things a little more exciting, and adding a little bit of time competition into the track days was kind of nice. There was this new system that you could. It wasn't GPS based or anything. It was like an infrared camera you could set on the side of the start finish line, and you could put a receiver in your car, and as you drove through the track, it would trip the infrared line and give you your lap time in this little box that you could Velcro to your dashboard. And so we're like, oh, this is cool. We can see our lap times, And so everybody we bought this bunch of these little boxes and this transmitter. We started giving people the timing boxes, and they would start running around the track, and we would start seeing our lap times. So of course, what's going to happen with a bunch of dudes driving on a racetrack? We're like, oh, look at my lap time. And they're like, look at my lap time. You're like, oh no, I can beat that. It's no lap. So, that's basically the beginning of Time Attack racing. You're timing yourself, and you're just comparing your times with your friends, and I bet you $1 I can go faster than your lap time. It was fun. That was the bare bones basic beginning of your Time Attack racing. For our area. I mean, Japan had been doing legit Time Attack, not series, but Time Attack super lap battles for some time. Since the 90s, they had been doing it. But it was more of a media promotional race on Sunday, sell on Monday kind of thing, where companies were building really expensive cars. I think the fastest car around Tsukuba cost like $4 million. And I don't think that record's been beat yet. But basically, it wasn't about selling anything. It was about just having fun at the track. So it was a little different than the Japanese Time Attack mindset, but along the same ideas of the fastest lap time was what counted. You know what I mean? And it grew from there. And we decided, hey, let's make a real series out of this. And we kind of went a huge jump. We kind of went from just having fun, timing ourselves, to creating an entire series that we ran across the entire United States, from California all the way to New York, in Redline's heyday of Time Attack racing. And it just came from that. Just came from driving around the track and with a little box that showed your lap time. That was it.
It is amazing. I mean, literally, the birth of Time Attack is the difference between spending time at the track with your buddies and then writing times down on paper.
Right.
And it is that little switch that then, his springboards Time Attack into what we all do to today and what we all love, which is, it's just funny kind of thinking, breaking it down to its most simple essence. Writing times down and comparing them, and look at where we have come to.
Yeah. I remember the little box. It was like little red LED, and it would save up to like 20 laps. So you could like go through it, and you could like see your lap time for 20 laps, and that was it. But you're right, though. It just went from that to this like overnight almost.
Yep. Do you know if there was any? I know, like you're saying, like it was going on in Japan. It had been kind of working its way through. Was there any impetus of like this moment? Was there something like between you guys, like doing your thing at the track, and like, oh, I watched this event, or like I gained some inspiration, or was it just like everything building and moving in a direction that spurred what that then became, which we will talk about in much more detail here shortly? But was there any like turning point, like I went to this event, or I watched this thing, or I watched an option video? I don't know.
Well, sure, absolutely, Mark. I don't think there was even YouTube yet at that time. I don't believe so. In the early 2000s, maybe it had just started, but so we didn't really get those option videos. You'd have to get them on DVDs, and we would watch them. Um, but that's not what did it. Um, it was the media here in North America. It was what really pushed us to finalize our rule system was Super Street and Sport Compact Car Magazine. Of course, I don't know if anybody's familiar with. They ran the first Super Lap battle in North America, and they were the ones that created the whole what track. They picked Button Willow, race 13 clockwise. They picked the venue, they picked the track, they picked the configuration, and they ran the very first Super Lap battle. And it was for media purposes. They wanted to write a cool article about, because all that Sport Compact Car and Super Street talked about, modifications. They a lot of articles on how to modify your car, what the best suspension to get, and all that good stuff. And they ran it in August of 2004. Yeah, August 2004 is when they ran the first Super Lap here, and it was partly created by Nads, John Nadari. You guys might know him. He was part of that whole thing, so he would be the first one to have actually put together the Super Lap concept and ran it here in North America. So I got to give Nads the props for that, because if he hadn't done that, it probably wouldn't have motivated us to finish our rule set to run a series. And even though it was just a one-off thing that they did, we really felt it's time to launch a Time Attack series after that article hit. And it might not have been even that big of a deal, but to us, the article was huge. I mean, it was like, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And it was a motivational experience for us to do our series, because we thought, this is awesome. We want to make this into a racing series, so we can go from talking about our lap times with each other to really making it a serious sport, so to speak. We wanted to turn it into a serious sport. And it seems like, when I'm talking about it now, it seems like an awful big jump. But at the time, it just felt like the next progression to do what we were doing, to go to that level,
I mean, it makes
it took off.
sense. I mean, it is one of those things and I do want to say, Nads is on our list of people that we got to get on this show. He has such a love of Time Attack. He has such I mean, his memories might be a little tweaked based on what alcohol he was drinking that weekend, but they'll be there and they will be good.
Yeah. Trust me. Wow, that guy could party.
Oh man, I like I said, I love Nads. I love what he brought to the sport, what he was doing within the sport, his promotional, his ideas. I mean, it's awesome. I love having him around. But yeah, so you did this, like you said, it felt huge, but at the same token, felt like it was in line. It was in line with the way it was pushing and driving, and so now August of 2004 happened. They did this Time Attack event. Obviously, then they published that and this is back in the days of magazines. So
yeah, they published it in Sport Compact Car, I think.
Yeah. So let me ask this: was that event more of like an invitational kind of only, like they were just having a certain kind of a few people that, I say a few, but a handful, however many people come out, just invitation?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was just an invitation event. Like I said, it was a media-driven event, and it was probably a lot of the cars they had already featured in their magazines in the past, and they were nice builds. Not all of them were really track builds, but some of them were. Some of those guys were track guys, and they did put together a good. They got enough. I can't remember. I'd say there's maybe 20 guys who they got to compete in this, and in two classes, limited, unlimited. And I wish I had brushed up on the article before I sat down and talked with you guys. But in general, it was just a showcase of all the cars, their builds, and what they could do on track. And it was great. It was a good article. I mean, nothing like that had been done before, not in here. I mean, they had been doing that in Japan for a long time, but because it was new here, it had a very grassrootsy feel to it. There was I don't think there was really any manufacturer behind any of those builds in that first
I
super
would
lap
say
battle.
probably not.
Well,
Yeah,
a quick Google search, and whether or not this is true or not, it is saying that 2004, the Signal Auto R34 Skyline, driven by Tarzan Yamada, set the first ever lap record at a 154. This event launched the U.S. Time Attack era.
Okay, so they did have a fairly decent. So they must have really publicized it internally to get those guys out there. Then, yeah. But that was probably the only manufactured based car, I would think. Was there any others? Do you know?
Don't know.
I mean, it's
so that's good. They got some credibility with Signal coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Tarzan raced in Redline for a very long time. He was a great guy. He's really good.
Yeah. It's amazing to still see him out there, even showing up at World Time Attack. It's just wild.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it is. No, exactly. He was in the first World Time Attack, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah. So so you watch that first event happen, you guys said, okay, that's going to be an even more impetus for us. We got to get out there. We got to start this series now of Redline Time Attack.
Yeah, people were hungry for it.
Oh, I bet. I bet there was a clamoring for this after the fact.
It was great. We ran our first one very low key. We just sort of internally, let everybody know, hey, we're going to run a Time Attack event, and it's basically going to be a test bed for a series that we want to start next year. So if anybody's interested in doing a Time Attack, show up to this event, and we're going to make it happen. And wow, did they show up. We had more people than I could have ever imagined come from all walks of life, all builds, sponsored, non-sponsored, just everybody came. It's sort of like, apparently more people read that article than I had anticipated, because it was a great showing for our first Time Attack, and we knew right away this was where we wanted to go with the sport.
Well, what did that really look like for you guys? Because obviously, like you said before, you had to build a rule showcase. So when did you guys pre-publish those rules? Were people showing up and then you guys were teching? And tell us kind of how. I really want to dive into how the rules were formulated and what the thought process was behind that.
Sure. So that first Time Attack, we did send out a basic rule set. We sent out a basic rule set to everybody who, I think we maybe just published it on our website and said, hey, we're doing a Time Attack. This is the rules. Comply to it. It's going to be a gentleman's kind of thing. We didn't really have any tech or anything, but we did go around and we did check out the cars to see if they were complying with the rules, because we wanted to make sure that the rule set would work. There wasn't any really official tech or anything like that, but everybody was pretty compliant. We gathered the times, we did all the data. We realized that our rule set for the most part worked. Everybody was within a second or less of their finishing order. So we knew the times were working. It was easy to tell. The biggest limiting factor were tires. Even if somebody did cheat it, it'd have extra amount of power. If you're in the street class, you couldn't run more than a 240 tread wear. So we knew even if they had 800 horsepower, they're not going to really do too much with that anyways, because they're traction limited. So we were able to get a pretty good idea of how the rule system worked. We tweaked it a bit here and there. We were pretty detailed with the amount of aero you could have, the amount of it really wasn't. We really decided not to go horsepower based, because we didn't feel we could really measure a car's weight versus horsepower. We just decided we would try to limit that the best we can with modifications. So we would limit modifications per class, traction limited. And again, it really came to the traction limitation the most, because even if somebody wanted to cheat, it really wouldn't benefit them. It would just benefit them to go to the next class, and where they would be able to actually utilize all the power that they were making, which it turned out it worked. I mean, I'm sure there was cheating. There always was. But the great thing about our rule system was that we wrote it in a way that if you paid close attention to the rule set, you could find a way to do well in your class. I wouldn't call them loopholes per se, but I would call them creative thinking. You could read the rule system and say, hey, I can't do this, 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 and this, but I can do, it doesn't say anything about this, 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 and this. So I'm going to build my car where it's compliant with the rules, but it doesn't say I can or can't do something. So it really left a little bit of creativity to the teams building their cars. And I think that also drove the sport. It let you be creative with your build. And if somebody got too creative and it was way faster than everybody else, then we would address that. We would say, okay, we have to address this particular modification. It's not going to work in this class. So we would address that and we would apply that to the next version of the rules for the next year. But for the most part, it worked out really, really well. I mean, it wasn't perfect per se, especially those first couple of years. And it was challenging sometimes because people were really upset that they had a car built and it didn't fit in the class, and they're really mad at us because their modified car wouldn't fit in the street class, and we had to explain to them, well, we could do in the modified, but maybe it wasn't competitive enough for modified. For the longest time, a Miata could not compete in time attack racing. Miata, based on our rules, just could not modify itself to be fast enough. But somebody figured it out. And they entered a Miata into the time attack modified class and ended up winning the modified class overall championship. So they figured it out. There was a way to do it. So that was the great thing about time attack. It was just, if you could figure out a way to make it work within the rules, then it worked.
Yeah. And two things right?
Yeah.
Is you have the creativity factor, which is still rampant today, is one of the biggest and most loving things for me for time attack is I look at time attack, and what I love about it is it's not just a bunch of cars looking exactly the same going around the racetrack. It is cars that are wildly different and are literally told to be different. Figure out ways to be creative, figure out ways to be different, and make the car go fast. Secondly, the tires.
Right.
I want to remind everybody we're talking about early 2000s tires.
Oh, God.
And I know. It said like 240 tread wear, like the super 200s weren't even like on the cusp. Like this isn't a thing where people were sitting there running tires that are comparable to slicks. We're talking about like legitimate, like passenger tires.
Exactly. The fastest tire in the modified class in this day was the Nitto NTO1. Just to give you a picture of that was the fastest tire, which is by far the slowest tire now.
Yeah. And it's amazing that the NTO1 still exists.
I know.
That's fair. That's fair, yeah. But I think that also kind of goes back to the fact of what you were talking about, Chris. That's why now, as we look back on, the history, we're like, oh, well, these tires were crap. But at the time, the tires were the tires. They were better than passenger tires. So they were still track tires. But I think that's also why you guys could run and say, like, okay, if someone wants to show, 450 horsepower was a very reasonable number to run with those tires. If you start to hit 600 horsepower, right, like it's hard to get that to the ground. Whereas today, right, like we got stock cars that are, OEM cars that are, 450 horsepower. They do that all day long. And it's like, well, give me a tune and I'm at 600. And so, that, again, that is, it's just so interesting. That is one of the reasons why that tire limitation works, and to a degree still works today and is still implemented today. I mean, you look at both Grid Life and GTA, both of them have strict tire limits. And they kind of say, like, look, if you can figure out a way to make more horsepower and get it to the ground, then good for you. There's your kind of creativity part, but we're going to limit the tire size. And that way it sort of self-polices people from showing up with today 1,000 horsepower because it's going to do you no good.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And that's what, tire, the size and the tread compound or the traction was really the biggest limitations for time attack for the class.
Yeah. Still, and it's just, we're probably gonna say this multiple times, and it's still just so interesting and fascinating to see that is still implemented today, right? We're talking about these sort of decisions and ways that you went about working these rules, and yet they've still lasted through even today's rule sets and how they're implemented. It's awesome. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely.
So now you created this rule set over the first year or two. You're sitting there trying to tweak it, you're massaging it here and there. Obviously, just like any rule set and any group of moron drivers, I'm betting there was a ton of happy people to give you a lot of great inputs about how their car is, completely screwed by your rules and how you needed to make it so that their car could be faster. But obviously,
I've seen more grown men cry than you can possibly imagine.
A tale as old as time.
And so you're sitting there and you're working to try to massage these rules. But just give us kind of a rundown, like, because even back then, what was like the daily schedule like? Like, what was that weekend? Like, was it a daily competition, a weekend competition? Did you guys use all sessions, 1 session, 3 sessions? Kind of give us that like actual like break into the event recap aspect.
Oh, that's a great question, Mark. As a matter of fact, I think what made Redline, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but I think what made Redline successful in its time attack racing is the basis for the competition, no matter what the rules were for the class. The basis of Redline was you only had 3 hot laps to get your time, no matter what.
Wow.
But we gave you 2 shots at it. We gave you a session in the morning. We gave you plenty of practice sessions in the morning, plenty of practice sessions all day long. But there were only 2 actual Redline time attack competition sessions that you could run. So you had a total of 6 laps that competition day to get your fastest lap. And that was it. You had one in the morning, not first thing. It was probably, mid-morning. You had, but a Redline time attack session is longer than you think. You have multiple cars, multiple classes. We had to set it up so there was only maybe 5 cars on track at any given time because we wanted to make sure you had the track to yourself. No, you didn't have to pass anybody. You didn't have to worry about anybody passing you. So we set it up, and this took a lot of tweaking, but we actually got pretty good at it. Mark, you could probably let me know if I'm right or wrong because you competed in early Redline time attack days. We tried to keep it, depending on the track, 5 to 10 cars at track at most. We would let them out based on your lap times, give you plenty of space. You would run your opener lap, you'd run your 3 hot laps and your cool down lap, and that was it. You're off track, and then the next group would go. And we got pretty good at it. We ran it like clockwork. We had everything lined up. I mean, the gridding was a nightmare. We had 5, 6, 7 people in grid. And even when Redline Time Attack was at its peak and I was supposed to be in the controlling everything, there were times where I had to take my headphones off, run down to grid because it was falling apart. And we had reorganized the grid because it was going to fall apart on track. But we got it to work pretty good. And I think that was the antithesis of what a Redline time attack was. It was, you had a very short amount of time. You had to make sure you, the driver, the car, the team, anybody you were working with, everything had to be ready at that given time that you were supposed to be on track. And that was it. And but it was stressful, but I think that the drivers, they appreciated that. I think they liked that. From the feedback that I was getting was that that's how they like time attack to do. It's hard to do in today's world of time trial and time attack racing because it definitely takes a level of organization that I just don't really see in today's organizations. But it can be done, but it's not necessarily the most optimized to run a track day that way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially in today's economic environment, you got to get as many cars to the track as you can. It costs twice as much to do a track day now as it did when we were doing it. So I'm not hating on how time attacks are done these days. I think that economically, you really don't have much of a choice. You have to run it more of like a time trial kind of a series, which is totally fine. It works. I think it still works just great, but it's the one thing that made Redline, that differentiated Redline from all the other time attacks that I see today.
Well, interesting.
Did that answer your question, Mark? Was that, or did I go completely off book there?
Perfect. And it's funny. Obviously, I kind of teed myself up for that one in a sense because that's actually for me what I think that time attack needs to think about going back to. And I say that because things that things that Grid Life has done. They brought up Podium Sprint, which we'll talk more about that and some other aspects of Redline in a little bit. But they brought
Sure.
up things like Podium Sprint, which is the top 5 guys in each class going out and getting essentially a smaller portion of time at the very end of the competition to try to get that one great lap, right? But
Oh,
to
okay.
me, one of the things that what Redline was doing at that time, again, like you mentioned, pressure, right? It
Yeah.
put pressure on people. And like you said, if you only really get 6 hot laps in an entire weekend to put down your fastest times ever, I mean, you get all the practice, you get all the time on track, you get all that. But when they say it's time, grid up, go
Yeah.
forth, session over, that's it. And
Yeah.
to
It's not a lot
me,
of time.
to me, that was one thing that I loved about that era of Time Attack. And I say that because, like, you went out in that first session and then you went and looked at your time because, that's one of the times of, like, GPS things weren't as, relevant. You were literally hoping for that transponder receipt. You'd be going up to the window, finding your name on the window and going, oh, what was my lap time? What was my lap time? And so
Yeah.
that was
You're
part
either
of the love of it, was like, I'm going to go to the first session. I'm going to do my laps. I'm going to come back. I'm going to see what my lap times were. And then you'd see what your lap times were. And then you'd go, okay, I have to go faster in the next session. I absolutely have to. And then one of my fun favorite parts was the second session, they wouldn't publish those times because they
Oh,
would
that's
hold on to
right.
those times
That's
until the
right. I
award.
forgot about that. Yeah. So
So
you didn't know.
so you didn't know. Like you could
Yeah.
honestly not know who won because it wasn't on a flying app that you were tracking the entire time. And like you could go to
Yeah.
the awards and be like, oh, I just got third, type thing.
Yeah.
So
Or you would think you're in first and somebody beats you and wow, that was just there's a lot
Yeah.
of angry. What? Let me see those times.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good time. As a matter of fact, I think that if I were to do a Time Attack series today, like if somebody said, "Hey, Chris, here's $1 million, do a Time Attack series," I don't think I'd let the cars even have GPS in their car. I would just keep it only A and B system, and you couldn't during the Time Attack session you couldn't use GPS.
I mean,
Nobody would like that rule.
No, you're right about that. Which I know we're gonna sound like a bunch of old fogies, but I remember, like, when I first got started, this is like 2010. I mean, when we would get done with a session, we would actually have to go and look for them to actually post the list right on paper underneath the tower somewhere, and you're like looking, saying, okay, what was my time, etc. Even cell phone based apps weren't there
sort
yet. Of around, but like not very good, right? And so I mean, it's just wild, especially now, with aim systems that I see in my car, right? Oh, I'm a 10th down, I'm a 10th up on this lap in this sector, right? Through turn 1, I'm already down, I'm already up on my best time, right? I mean, it's just so far beyond, especially when we all got started. It's good to kind of go back down memory lane.
Yeah. It's amazing how much the technology has advanced in such a short amount of time. Because literally 10 years ago, I would be looking down at like 20, 30 drivers standing in a circle waiting for the lap times. And I'd be telling my timing guy, you got to print out those times, man. He's like, I'm still working on it. I'm like, you got to print out those times, man. They're going to come up here in a minute.
Their pitchforks are coming out.
So
but now it's great. Now you just look on your phone and you see it.
In those first few years, Fritz, what was I'm just trying to think out loud here, but what were some like can you remember any like standout like cars, drivers that really like stand out to you from back in that like couple first early year era?
Sure. Well, I mean, the very first years, the very early years, it was mostly, Southern California based guys. There was a couple of teams that came out. I remember the JIC Magic S15, I think they had. They built at that time, they had the fastest Time Attack car. All the rear wheel drive cars were the fastest. FXMD Motorsports had their NSX. Was it the Blitz Racing S2000? Was that them? I can't remember if it was Blitz. There was an S2000, the FD motorsports, NSX, the JIC Magic S15. Those are a few off the top of my head I can think of that were really prominent and very, very popular, cars at the time. Tons of guys from all over came with their own private builds, just their own machines that they built in their garage, and that worked really well. Oh, cool! There it is.
Can you guys see that? Is that?
Yeah.
We're trying to, for our YouTube viewers, kind of throwing up. This was, you said JIC Magic S15. Just went trying to see if I could find it.
That pretty much.
So, that still looks like something that could be out there today. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was the first car that I remember that did a sub 150 at Button Willow, if I can remember correctly.
Oof.
Is that S15? Yeah, the all-wheel drive cars. They started becoming faster later, though. As Redline progressed, we got cars like the Sierra, Evo, and other all-wheel drive platforms, Cusco, yeah. And those became the fastest of the fast. The all-wheel drive cars eventually did outshadow, but the rear-wheel drive car, like the NSX from FD Motorsports, they still hold some lap records, I think, as far as their car is concerned. So I think rear-wheel drive was still the fastest generally, but not always. There was always great battles too back in the early days. Great battles between Subaru STIs and Evos. That was a great battle. The front wheel drive guy. Don't forget about Chris Rado. Came from drag racing. Called me up one day and said, "Hey man, I want to do." He goes, "This is Chris Rado." I'm like, "Who?" He's like, "Chris Rado, the drag racer." I'm like, "Cool, man." He's like, "I want to do time attack racing." And so he built his what was it called? The World something. A Scion. Yeah, he got the Fwing, the Scion. He held I think he still holds the front wheel drive class records on
he got taken out by Will Ion finally.
He did. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's but I mean,
we gotta throw this one up there.
Yeah,
there he is.
I mean, that car held records for forever and ever and ever.
A long time. Yeah,
and it was cool.
I still remember seeing pictures of that. I mean, for again, we're throwing some pictures up for the YouTube viewers, but it is a wide body Scion TC, and I still remember the first time I seeing that he basically mounted a wing, a legit like a wing, a rear wing on the front of his car.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking that looks insane. Does that even work? How can that work? I don't even know what's going on.
Apparently it worked, and he had so much boost he ran through that car. I'm surprised he didn't blow that thing up. It was just incredible.
Well, and that's like it, and also just kind of give you an opportunity here, Chris, of obviously you had a ton of great people working with you and with Redline Track Events and Redline Time Attack. If you wanted to, shout out any of those cool people. I mean, I know people like Z and stuff like that have been around forever and ever, and those guys are awesome. So,
Right. Well, I don't want to go too far into the management of Redline. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to talk about Redline and what happened to it? And
we will. We'll get there. We'll get there. That's a little bit. That's a little bit further in this conversation. We're still in the happy day.
I mean,
we're still in
that. Well, all my memories of Redline are happy, really, for the most part. But there's great people that I worked with at Redline, and I mean, you said Z Reed, Zadok Reed was our grid chief, and we couldn't have done half of what we did without him. He was simply amazing at his job. He was the best grid chief I've ever had to work with, and Z wasn't. I mean, this is what people did on the weekends with us. This wasn't their job. They just did it, and it was all passion. Everybody who worked at Redline, it was all passion. It was all passion because there really wasn't much money to be made in this. We made enough to pay people for the most part to do a job, but that was it, really. I mean, we made enough to to get by and to run another year of time attack racing. But
let's just I just want to make a quick point. Like, that is still the story today, right? All of these organizations are still like, right? Everybody's just trying to make enough money to pay the workers. Many of them though were volunteer, and they're just trying to make enough to put on the next event. So it's just like, from that perspective, from that standpoint, it's still the same challenges that every organization is facing.
Yeah, I probably even more so today, because I know it costs a lot more money to do this today, to rent a track, have insurance, and do what we did, 10, 15 years ago. Today, it's double almost in price. So it's definitely a challenge, and it has to be a passion project, or otherwise it just wouldn't happen, I'm sure. Yeah.
Here at the Perfect Lap Podcast, we're happy to introduce Whoosh Bespoke Wheels as a sponsor of the show. Whoosh Bespoke was born out of necessity. Their race team struggled to find wheels that offer the perfect fit, strength, durability, and that big old thing, a reasonable price. The people behind Whoosh Bespoke are racers and engineers seeking engineering excellence, and they offer precision forged wheels crafted by racers for racers, with a product lineup that includes a wide range of options from monoblock to modular wheels, including 2- and 3-piece wheel designs, all engineered from the finest materials, although they do primarily use 6061 T6 forged aluminum, but they do offer things as high of quality as a magnesium alloy. So this really can work for any setup you're trying to go for. Customization is at the heart of what they do at Whoosh Bespoke. You can tailor your wheels with custom sizes, offsets, finishes, and even options like custom lettering, adding two-tones. Their colors include both standard and premium finishes, as well as special finishes like brushed, hand polished, and even paint to sample. Every set of wheels produced exceeds the JWL standards and meets the rigorous WCEC quality standards, and they are tested by real people with real cars racing all around the world. And guess what? Me and Kilgore, we're also going to be part of that team. So we're going to be putting these things to the test. We're putting them on our cars. Kilgore is going to be repping out and going through all the time attack season. I'm going to be beating them up at HPDE days and just having a good time with them. So I want you to go take a look at them and make sure you give them a follow on all their socials. It's whooshautomotive.com, Whoosh Automotive on all the socials. Go check them out. But we'll jump into so a couple years in, right? You're gaining traction. You have your format. What was that next step for you guys? What was that thing? Okay, so you're running this in basically Southern California. You were doing Auto Club Speedway, Buttonwillow, Willow Springs. Trying to think of anything else.
Spring Mountain.
Yeah,
we did Spring Mountain. Every track in California, in pretty much Southern California, we had been running successful time attacks at for a couple of years, and we felt it was time to expand. We were getting a lot of requests to come to tracks in other parts of the country. We did a Laguna Seca event, which was our big test bed. We thought if we could do a Laguna Seca event, which at the time, a weekend at Laguna Seca cost $50,000. And we were like, if we can run an event at Laguna Seca and make enough money to cover that event, then I think we can go anywhere, because I think it was the most expensive venue in the country at the time. So I thought, okay, let's do
how
a Laguna
quickly prices have risen.
Exactly. We did a Laguna Seca event. I remember it too. It was very satisfying. I remember pulling into the paddock thinking to myself, well, if we can make it happen here, then we really have got something going. And we pulled off the Laguna Seca event, and I can't remember this, probably maybe 2007, around the time frame 2007. And the next year, 2008, I think, we took a skeleton crew and we went to Beeve Run Motorsports Park in Pennsylvania. We found an event that the car groups had expressed that they had enough people interested in that area where we could run a Redline Time Attack, and we did. And we even had guys from Southern California tow their cars out there because they would be, there was no way they were going to let some East Coast guys beat them on the track. So we had probably 10 guys from Southern California tow their cars out to Beaver Run Motorsports Park to compete in that first time attack we did on the East Coast. Or, I mean, was it even the East Coast? Maybe it was the Midwest. I think it was Pennsylvania. So it's the east part of the country.
Everything past
and that was
Rockies
successful.
is East Coast. We've established this.
That is well understood on this podcast. Yes.
All right. And it was a great event. We had a great time with it. We ran it, and we had people from Michigan, from Pennsylvania, people from New York, people from Virginia, people from all over the eastern part of the country come and compete in this event, and it was wildly successful. So after that one, we ventured to Summit Point Raceway. We did an event in Summit Point. We ended up doing a couple at Summit Point Raceway. That was a really good central location on the East Coast for people to come. We did one at the Lightning Lap New Jersey Motorsports Lightning Lap track, I think it was called. We did one in New York. I can't remember what the track was, unfortunately. It escapes me. It was some time ago. Anyways, we did all these. We did South Carolina. We did Florida. And then all of a sudden, we got a bunch of emails from the good folks in Canada. They're like, we need you to come and do a Redline Time Attack in Canada. And we're like, sure, why not? What track do you want us to come to? And so they all unanimously said, we need to come to this really obscure track in Montreal called, oh my God, I can't remember what it's called. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name of the track in Montreal, but we went to some obscure track in Montreal that everybody said that they loved. And it was kind of like a Streets of Willow track. It was just awful. It had no infrastructure. It must have been like 100 years old. And I'm like, this is the track they wanted us to come to. But we ran a great event there. It was fantastic. We got rained out one day in New York. In the New York track, it rained so much we had like a ton of rain on the track. So everybody decided to use their tow vehicles, their big trucks, and we did a Redline truck attack instead.
Nice.
Wow. So yeah, because the cars wouldn't fit on the track. There was too much water. So the fastest tow vehicle won that one. And we even had a semi do a time attack at Button Willow. We had a semi hauler out there. I forgot what team it was, but Billy Johnson drove it. And there's a video out there on it too, if you search for it. Billy Johnson at the semi at Button Willow. So we let him do a time attack in the semi truck. It was pretty fun. We did that. It was good. So we did the rental car challenge.
As you guys increased that scale, you guys went from the Southern California based entity to now I'm going across the United States and even into Canada, and you increased that scale. What were some of the, I mean, obviously tons of challenges, but after starting to do that, did that start, what problems did that start causing, if any?
Okay, so and we're going to talk about the downfall of Redline now. Okay, so so what happened? Yes, when Redline in 2009, when Redline went to VIR, and we had our 2009 finale at Auto Club Speedway, we had Japanese teams. We had Japanese teams coming from Japan to compete. We had sending their cars. We had like motorsports teams like Sierra, for example, building Redline Time Attack dedicated cars only. We're talking, $1 million builds here for our series. We were partnering up with NASCAR at VIR to do time attacks at NASCAR events at Virginia International Raceway. We were really reaching the pinnacle of grassroots motorsports with Redline, and it was a good time. It was still just a weekend gig. It wasn't a full-time job yet. Redline was not producing any kind of income that could take us from our regular jobs just to focus on Redline. So we're doing these great, fantastic things, as a side project, and they were really, it was really getting to the point where it was a huge amount of organizational work and time, and it was getting to the point where Redline had to be 100% focus, and we needed to decide if it was ready for that focus. And that's when things started to change with Redline. It grew a little too fast, too quickly, and
so that was about 4 to 5 years, sort of that change in terms of initial start of a couple of events to, sort of pinnacle 2008, 9, massive, recognition.
Yes. I think we had the most attendees of any kind of non-professional sport. I mean, we had like 5,000 people show up at Auto Club Speedway, which when in North America was insane. I mean, nobody came to watch these kind of things. I mean, road racing, I mean, people would go see NASCAR, but nobody would just come and watch a motorsports event. You can't really, it's not really conducive to spectator sport, but the people that came were just in love with the sport. The people that in Australia, they do a World Time Attack, and they get thousands and thousands of people to come all the time because it's a different culture. It's a different mindset. People go because they love that kind of racing, love this kind of car builds. But here in North America, that isn't necessarily so. So it was always a struggle to bring people into the sport that really weren't competing in the sport, or who really didn't understand it, or who really just didn't know about it. It was hard to get people to see it. But at some point, Redline was able to somehow get enough friends and family of these people to come and participate in the sport. And that's when it reached its pinnacle. But did that make it a professional sport? I would argue it didn't. It was still a grassroots at the heart. And just because we had a few events that brought a few thousand people, it didn't make it a legitimized professional sport yet. It still needed a growth period to get there. We were just beginning those baby steps into that sort of foray. Do you know what I mean?
What do you think some of the baby steps that you guys were doing within the organization? Because my memory serves me as like, there was things that Redline was doing. You created this structure of the Time Attack weekend, but like I remember seeing things like a drift race drift Time Attack. So kind of give me an idea of some of the things that you guys were innovating and creating to try to create buzz and focus and trying to get people in.
Exactly. So going back to speaking how it didn't really generate much money, we wanted to be able to generate income so we could focus on it full time. We sort of took a page out of Formula D at the time. Formula D was I think still is a very popular drifting sport. And at the time in the early mid 2000s, they were huge. They would go and run a drifting event and get sometimes tens of thousands of people to show up. Now, it's a lot easier to sit in stands and watch a very small closed course and watch drifting go. So it's a lot more difficult to do that with a road racing series. So we tried to add some drifting in there. We would put some drifting events, some drifting. We even partnered with Nopi Nationals for a while, and they did like their Nopi National events with us, and that was real drifting competition that they did. And we tried to incorporate, live music in some of our events, and sort of like a festival atmosphere at one point to try to bring more people, because we thought if we could bring more people, we could generate more income and we could take Redline to the next level. But we really needed to generate the income to do that. And even though we were getting fairly decent sponsorship from companies, we still needed to generate more income, and getting people butts in the seats were what we were trying to do. And we succeeded in that, but not as, it still could have been better. We were still experimenting.
Yeah. I want to reiterate this point just for viewers. We have a lot of people, a lot of drivers.
Sure.
To your point, even back then, even today, drivers, entrants are never going to be enough to generate revenue, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have spectators. You've got to have sponsors. You got to have people coming. Drivers are never going to be enough. Entrants are never going to be enough. They may cover the track rental, maybe.
Yeah.
And so that, again, just something that we're trying to get people to sort of recognize and understand in terms of when you're one of these drivers, when you're starting a team or when you're part of a team and you're trying to figure out costs and budgets and what an organization can do for you and how they can help you. Um, while they want you there, your entry fee covers very little in terms of the overall weekend of what the cost is.
Exactly. And Redline pioneered ways to bring value to the participants, the drivers. We really focused on trying to bring as much value to the Time Attack teams as possible by providing as much media coverage as we could. Back then, we still had print media, so we still had D Sport magazine and some other print companies, Modified magazine, that were dedicated to cover every single event, and they did great photography, great articles, full page spreads of what we were doing, and plus we had going back to Nads, he did great video coverage for us on his Rice Boy TV, I think it was called. He did great coverage of Redline Time Attack for us. So we were trying to bring a lot of value to the sport, and we were succeeding. I think that at the height of Redline, we were on the right track to succeeding to get to that level of exposure and value for the sport. And we were still doing it by keeping the cost to drivers to a minimum, because we knew how much it cost. These guys were building cars that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we were trying to do the best we could to give them the value per dollar, ROI, as you would say, I guess, for them, so they could come to Redline and get a lot of exposure. And we battled a lot too, because a lot of times sponsors would pour their money into a car, and that car would get so much exposure that it would be great ROI for that sponsor. But then as an organization like Redline, we're like, hey, maybe you should sponsor us too, because we're the ones providing all the exposure for you, but you're pouring all your money into this car. If you don't give us a little something, we're not going to be able to do anything for you. So there was a bit of a battle to try to get sponsorship for the series, because sponsors would just go to the teams rather than to us. So that was a major issue we had to deal with.
That's super interesting. I don't think I've really ever heard people talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, but that was something that at the time we were battling with, because we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. A Redline Time Attack event got to the point where, it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to run this event, and we needed a certain amount of people to come, a certain amount of sponsorship, and we had to charge a certain amount of money for the people to come. We would also run, because Redline was a very focused weekend event. We would also do some HPDEs during Redline Time Attacks, just to guys to come in. They could come do their car in the HPDE, and then they would be front row to the Time Attack, and they loved that too. So we would charge a little premium for that as well. But trying to get enough, basically, Kilgore, what you were saying is we just needed to find a way to get enough money to pay for everything. And the bigger we scaled it, the more everything cost. Yep. So it was always a battle to try to get enough to cover everything. And it was getting to the point where it was going to either tip one way or another. It's hard to explain, but it was a lot easier than now. I don't know how you guys do it these days. It's got to be stressful. Yeah. Because we could afford to lose money on an event and keep going. Nowadays, you can't do $100,000 event and lose money and keep going. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of give some quick recollection, I remember going to an event as a viewer at Willow Springs. I remember showing up, and there was the Cobb semi truck with Cameron Benner as the Subaru STI driver. You had their GTR there, all the JC Monays and all the GST Motorsports and all the other craziness that was that event. And it was such a big, like, to go there. Like you said, it was even at Willow Springs, which in theory, is not a great track in terms of amenities. But it's one of those things, like, to go there and see all the cars and the teams and the dedication. And I'm trying to remember if that also had, my memory doesn't serve me quite as well as it used to, but it's one of those things where I'm trying to remember if they had the drift battle at Willow Springs, and then also if they incorporated the circuit battles where they had the one-on-one time attack battle at that event as well. And I'm just, it was, again,
we
innovative, good idea.
that was the pinnacle, Mark.
Yeah. Right? Like,
yeah, that season, that event at Willow Springs that you're talking about, that was a fantastic event. Your memory serves you right. That was a special event, and this is when Time Attack sort of started to really gain momentum, and we had the circuit battle. So circuit battle, really quick. What we did is that we decided to spruce things up. The top Time Attack drivers, if they qualified and they had the proper race car preparation in their car, which a lot of them did, they could do a sprint race. It was a time attack, but instead of the 3 laps on your own, you did the 3 laps with the top 3 of every class at once. So it was that giant sprint race of 20, 30 cars trying to get the fastest lap, but they were racing wheel to wheel. And some of them bowed out. They were like, look, I have a car that there's no way I'm going to damaged because it cost so much money. But the ones that did it, God bless them, because they just went balls to the wall in a race. And these guys were like pent up because they doing the fastest lap they could, but to actually do it side by side with other cars, it was spectacular. I remember the first one we did when we did a what do you call it, parade lap around, and then the parade car would pull off and they would get the checkered flag, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Just 30 cars coming up the front straight of Willow Springs, going to turn 1, literally 10 cars wide. It was crazy. It was crazy. I thought, oh my God, they're going to crash. They're not going to be able to do time attack anymore. We're going to destroy half our clientele in one race. I'm like, what were we thinking?
But it was fun.
It was fun.
The innovative ideas of how can, again, you were looking for, how do we make this more interesting for the crowd? How do we find ways to get the crowd there? How do we get them interacting? How do we get them to care? How do we, and all those things that you guys were constantly trying to do to evolve the sport and to make it interesting and great.
So Mark, this is a really good segue here. This was the pinnacle of Redline. You would show up at a Redline event and you would see all this stuff, these trailers, race, these guys would bring out their sim racing. You'd have guys doing sim racing, and you'd walk around the corner and there'd be, AMS and Cobb with their booths, and, we'd have 30, 40 different, aftermarket manufacturers trying to hawk their suspension, their wheels, their everything. I mean, it was like,
oh yeah,
it was a circus. It was fantastic. So what happened is that Redline decided it could be more of a professional organization. So it ran a few of these great Halo events, and all of a sudden it was, oh, we can do anything now. We can charge anything we want. We can do this, we can do that. We have, Toyo Tires sending us checks because they want to be part of us. They don't even give us a sponsorship. They just sent us a blank check and said, hey, here's a check for you. Fill us in wherever you want to go. And the people at Redline were like, oh, we've made it. We can do whatever we want to do now.
We're here.
We're on our way. We're on our way up. We're going to do next year. This is 2009, 2010. We're going to do whatever we want. But that didn't really work out too well for Redline, because they decided they were going to institute basically a profession. They went from a grassroots motorsports organization overnight into a EMSA racing series where they were going to charge $30,000 per team to compete. Sponsorship was going to be, $100,000 and up, and and media coverage. You had to pay us to cover our events. D-Sport magazine, you had to pay us, $10,000 to come and cover every event. And wait a minute, just slow down. That's just not gonna work. There's no way that is gonna work out. So I left the company because I felt that wasn't where it should go. And the other people that I were partnering with in Redline, even though I had created Redline track events, Redline Time Attack was a conglomerate of partners, and they felt they wanted to go in that direction, and I didn't. So I stepped aside and decided to let them take it to the next level. But unfortunately, a year later, Redline Time Attack was no more. So that's the sad story of Redline.
So yeah, wow. 2011.
I mean,
it just
That is such
done.
a huge, like, I really wasn't sure what numbers you were going to say, or I really wasn't sure when you're saying like they were going to go pro, because a lot of people throw that around like, oh, it's going to be pro.
Yeah.
And right, it's kind of hard to, well, what does that really mean to you, to other people? But, going from, okay, and Jaeger, again, you can maybe add some legitimacy to this in terms of, a season probably costing, as it probably does now, $4,000 to $5,000 in entry fees, things like that.
Yeah,
Obviously there's other travel costs and things to it, but I mean, even today that's sort of similar, right? Depending on what events you go to, you're still spending $4,000 to $5,000, maybe $7,000 on entry fees. But to then just say, oh yeah, hey, we're going to quadruple that.
Yeah.
That is just
well, and I think Chris hit it kind of.
it's just unheard of. I mean, I just
Well, you
like,
have, and you have,
no
yeah.
wonder it fell apart, right? Like, I mean,
Right. Well, you have to ask yourself, is that value worth what I'm getting
Yes,
to participate in a series? And if it is,
absolutely
then
right.
great. But but I mean, you're asking a lot. And you know what? The figure I threw out there might not have been exactly that much, but it was still a lot of money. It was in the tens of thousands of dollars to compete. It went from, like you said, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to a $20,000 or $30,000 expense now to compete, which is a completely different kind of thing. Now you're looking at taking the grassroots out of it completely.
That's a couple different tax brackets up.
Exactly. And let me tell you what, when Redline was at its height in 2009, we still had guys showing up with a U-Haul truck with a S15 Silvio with different matching body panels, still going on track and racing in Time Attack. It wasn't, the kind of teams that you had at the time. What was the racing series now where you have the Porsches and the BMWs, and is that IMSA Racing, or before it was like the Coney Challenge?
Yeah,
it was
SRO. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you have these teams with millions of dollars, and they're basically rich people competing for fun. Redline was not even close to that yet.
Yeah,
and it might have not even ever gotten to that.
And I think even the premise, going back to what you originally said, it's about the creativity of the individuals. It didn't necessarily always mean the biggest pocketbook. It meant I'm leaving these rules open for interpretation, for creativity to be involved, for you to build a car. And something that me and Kilgore have talked a lot about on this channel is, at the end of the day, yes, a lot of us go in with the concept of we want to win, right? A lot of people want to win. But I will say some of the Time Attack cars that people fall in love with and want to see aren't necessarily the fastest. They are the cars that they can relate to. They are cars that they think are fascinating. They are builds that intrinsically to them are something that they see and love. And that's something that rule set allowed them to really fall in love with Time Attack.
That's a great point, Mark. You know what? That is exactly it. That really hit the nail on the head. A lot of the people that love Time Attack racing, who actually end up becoming Time Attack racers, who came to Redline as teenagers and then became drivers later on, is because they loved that whole aspect of what it was. They would come to the grid, they would look at the cars, they would read the rules, and they would say, oh, this guy's doing this because of this. And they figured that out, and then they became drivers, and then they started building great Time Attack cars too. The driver I can think of right off the top of my head, Amir.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. So Amir came to Redline Time Attacks in the early days when he was maybe a teenager or early 20s and put it all together, and he became one of the greatest Time Attack drivers there was too. So I mean, really, it's just about it's that love for the sport that is at that grassroots level that you just cannot get. You cannot transfer if you try to put it at a level that is like a professional based level. It's not going to work.
Yeah. And I'll circle that back even to what we first started talking about, which is, for me, again, gosh, we're going to go back, sound like a bunch of, old people. It was the Sport Compact and the D Sport, going and reading those magazines, seeing the builds in those magazines, seeing the coverage of the events. And that is what made me fall in love with these cars and building these cars and watching these events. And then, of course, Tsukuba became in Japan, a little more prevalent over here, and there's a little more coverage as to what was going on. And again, I think that there's a lot of people who, especially some of the older people in the paddock, right? That's how we all fell in love with this. But I would also say it's not that much different today. It's just that the medium through which all of that happens has changed. It's now gone from, print magazines to YouTube and Instagram. And, I mean, a lot of people follow the Jackie Deans and the Deweys and the Amirs of the world on Instagram, and they see them building their cars. They see the coverage of their cars on YouTube or wherever, and that's where they're falling in love. They still see these cars, right? They're still very similar cars, right? Like, in terms of they're just the newer cars, but they're still kind of, big power, big wings, time attack cars, and people are loving that and doing the same thing, right? Saying, okay, I can do that. I can be a part of that. I can build a car to the regulations and then go out there and compete as well. It doesn't require $30,000. It doesn't require $100,000, right? It may require that much to win.
Yeah.
As people say, it costs a lot of money to win. It doesn't cost very much to compete.
So that's Kilgore. That's a great point too, because out of all those time attack races we ran, we had 120 guys there competing. You only read about the top 5 or 10. There was still another 100 guys there just having a great time. Like you said, they bought a suspension, they fit in the rules, and they went there and they competed, and they had a great time competing, and they got to run just as much as those top teams, and they got just as much. And when they finished their session and they came off the track, they got just as many press photographing them coming off the track as the top teams. And when you came off that track at the height of Redline Time Attack at the end of your session, there was a slew of media at the end of the track, and they were photographing every single car that came off the track, and those guys would come off the track just elated. They were just so thrilled. And also too, before they would go on the track, I would be out there on grid, and all the guys, the top guys, all the way down to just the dude who threw a set of coilovers on his car and said, "Let's go for it." He came out there, and when it was time to do this, I would go, "You ready, man?" And he'd be there. He's like, stone-faced focus. I'm like, "You ready? You got three laps to do this, man." He's like, "I'm ready. Let's do it." And then I'd go, "You're on, man. You're on." And then to see him go on the track, just ready to go, just knowing that was his time, it's fantastic. And as a driver, when it comes down to it, I'm still that same guy behind the wheel. I love to drive. I love it. I love doing my competitions. I compete in my little Miata competitions or whatever I do, or time attacks or time trials for whatever car I'm into that for that particular time, and it's still just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. And at the height of Redline Time Attack, I could see it in their faces, and they were just ready to go. And Mark, I've been on grid with you when you were breaking your record in your Subaru that day you broke the record. You were on grid, you were ready to go, and I would come up to the window, I'd put my hand on your windowsill, I'd be like, "All right, Mark, you got about a minute or two before you're on track," and you would just be getting ready to go, getting everything together. I'm like, "You ready?" And then all of a sudden, 10 seconds before you're ready to go, it was like stone face, just pure concentration. And you wouldn't even look at me. I'm like, "You ready to go, Mark?" Nothing. They're like, "All right, I'm just going to tell you when to go." "Okay, go." And then you would go.
Well,
it's crazy.
I also want to touch on one thing, right? So you just alluded to this, and that is we talked early about your Celica back in the day, but it's like, dude, Chris, you've always been a track guy through and through, always going to the track. I mean, obviously when we kind of reconvened later on, you had your Nissan, your Z. It's like you were doing the Z competitions, the Nissan competitions. You had more recently a Mustang. You had a Cayman. Now you have another car. It's like you've always had a car. You've always gone to the track, and it's one of those things. Like, you're a track guy through and through. And so that's a big part of who you are as a person, is going to the track. And I think people, I'll be the first to say it, sometimes when you showed up at a Redline Time Attack, you kind of forgot that Chris was also a racer Chris guy. You just think of Chris as a guy who organizes this competition, and it is nice to kind of always make sure to put that back into a synopsis of like Chris was also a track guy. He knows what it's like to go out and try to put down the fastest lap. It's not just like a guy sitting in a tower type situation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's what made Redline great, is that the people behind it were track guys. They drove their car on the track. We knew what made us happy. So we wanted to translate that for everybody. So, I mean, that's how Redline, that's why Redline was successful for its time and when it was. I think that Redline helped the sport of Time Attack, because after Redline failed, when they tried to make a move they weren't ready for, which is fine, that happens.
Yep.
But others picked up and kept going, and that's fantastic, because the sport of Time Attack really is what it's all about. And I'm happy. I'm glad there's the GTAs in the world. I'm glad that it's going strong still. I mean, it might not be quite like it was in the Halo days of Time Attack, but it'll probably get back there again. A lot has changed. Economics have changed. It's harder to do now. People, enthusiasts are maybe not as many as there were back, 15 years ago. Kids getting into cars these days, they're still doing it, but I don't really see it at the numbers that there was when I was younger. But it's still there, it's still going, and it's gonna have its ebbs and flows. And when Redline was at Time Attack, it was at a peak, and it's kind of come down a little bit. But GTA's brought it back up, and maybe it's come down a little bit since then. But it'll keep going, and I think it'll eventually get back to where it was, where everybody was going to the track and they could grab their cheap little Honda Civic and throw a few $1,000s into it and make it into a track car. I don't see that so much anymore, because it's become more cost prohibitive. But and also it's just Willow Springs. I used to run a track day at Willow Springs with Redline track events. I think I got it done like $50. I was like, come to Willow Springs for $50.
I remember
run all day.
$60 track days. Just saying.
$60,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. $50-$60, and that was no competition.
That's
Exactly. We still, at the end of the day, Redline really tried. Even though we were doing the Redline Time Attack, we still had the track events, and we were still trying desperately to bring new enthusiasts to the sport, because we felt if we could bring new enthusiasts to the sport, a lot of those guys would end up wanting to do Time Attack. We were doing this big Time Attack series. We wanted to feed the series. So we were trying to feed the series by offering really inexpensive and really just chill, laid back track days to get people into the sport. And I don't see that anymore. I don't see the chill, laid back track days where you can just go to the track and just have fun at a low price point. It's all hundreds of dollars, and then gas and everything else. You're looking at probably a minimum of $500-$600 just to go to a Willow Springs event.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Chris, during those first year or two, did you do any driving at the event, or did you just strictly say when you started Redline track events that you were just going to organize?
I always drove. Even at Redline Time Attacks, I would not drive a lot, but I would always.
Good for you. Good for you,
Yeah.
because I think so many people they get into the organization side and then they basically have to choose one or the other. And
I
so
would do it in the mornings. I would find. I knew that I would tell my staff the very first run session of the day, I'm unavailable. I'm going to go out and I'm going to run that first run session. Even if it was a really busy event, I'd still do it. I'd be like, and some of my peers would be like, you shouldn't do this, man. You should focus on making sure that everybody's taken care of. I'm like, screw that, man. Why would I do all this if I can't get at least one session in the morning? I have my own personal lap times that I'm trying to beat. I mean, so I would go out in the morning sessions when it was the coolest. And I would always run the very first morning session. And I would also still, even to the last days of Redlines, if there was noobs that came to the track, I would instruct them. I would take them out on track. I would show them how to drive. I had a guy come to me just not too long ago, out of the blue. I was working, and some dude comes up to me. He's like, "Are you Chris Willard?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, you don't know me, but you gave me a ride in your S2000 like 15 years ago, and you changed my whole life. Now all I do is go to the track. And I said, oh, sorry about that, man. He's like, no, it's a good thing. So, I mean, and that made me feel really, really good. And especially because I don't organize track events anymore. I thought, oh, cool. Maybe I did something good for some people. But I mean, I loved it. I loved showing new people how to drive the track. I loved driving the track. I loved the whole experience. And unlike a lot of my peers, like you said, a lot of my peers who just strictly focused on the organization and completely lost the passion, I never lost that. I always loved going to the track, always loved driving. And I think you have to have that. Otherwise, you won't be successful at this kind of thing. So,
Well, I
absolutely.
will say this, Chris, in an interesting conversation that we've had with members of Grid Life, one of the conversation pieces from them, is that they don't want to make it pro. They want to
Yeah,
keep
good.
that grassroots aspect to Grid Life to ensure, and maybe, just maybe, this is a lessons learned from history from Redline that they have picked up over time and said, when we saw that transition piece, that's where the real disconnect and it all fell apart. Maybe history is actually something that's being taught. And that's a big reason, obviously, for us having you on the show today, is we're alluding to time attack newbies. We're alluding to the guys that have been around for years and years and years, to try to get them to remember the grassroots, the startup, the passion, the antithesis, the biggest, and then how it can fall and how it can all crumble apart from us with a few key decisions. And we have to keep that in mind. And we need to ensure that, like, one of the things that we constantly harp on this channel is simply, we got to show up. We have all these people always asking for an event in their backyard. It needs to be within an hour of me. Otherwise, it's not worth my time. Well, guess what? If you don't make that travel of that 3 hours to get to that event, these events might not happen at all. So you have to support the organizations that are supporting the racers and supporting the time attackers, and get out there and attack time with the events that are as close as possible to you, if possible. So
No, exactly. I think Grid Life's doing a great job too. I really appreciate them. I think that if that's their mentality as far as keeping it grassroots, because I really don't know if time attack could ever be a pro sport, but if it could be, it would be a patience game. And if Grid Life has the patience, they could possibly get there. You know, they could actually make it a professionally ran organization where everybody competes and they get all the teams competing and all the aftermarket involved. And I think I mean, they're not there yet, of course, but I mean, from what I've seen of them, I've never been to a Grid Life event myself, but from what I've heard from others and you, Mark, is that they're really good.
Yeah.
And they've got what it takes.
Kilgore's been to a ton of them. He ran a whole season with them last year. Obviously, we'll let Kilgore speak to Grid Life and anything he wants to say to it. But, you know, hit it, Kilgore.
Chris, I was going to say, Chris, I think if possible, I think you can hitch a ride with Jager, because he is going to be going. I'm speaking that into the universe, to Laguna, to their event that should be in September. I think it's September. I think I would really be interested to hear your take after you go to that event, because I think some of it, so much of it would be familiar, yet slightly different. I think you would see so many things that are still the same, but yet with just some new takes, some modifications, for today's consumers.
Sure.
Things like that, I would love for you to get out there with Jager to the Grid Life Laguna event. It's a really good event. And I think there's Grid Life is obviously doing a lot of good things. I will say this. I mean, I will be the first to say, even as much as we love Time Attack and we're doing an entire podcast on Time Attack, I will be the first to admit, I think that Time Attack is one of the harder events to have as a standalone event. I mean, even you, Chris, said, while Time Attack was the main focus, you guys were still bringing in drift. You guys were still bringing in some other components to it. World Time Attack, I mean, does the same thing, right? It's just so hard to have one event event that only has time attack drivers, right? Or time attack is the only motorsport that's going on. And that's okay, right? That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a reality that I think that time attack alone it will be hard to justify time attack alone to support an entire weekend or a series. Not that it couldn't be done, or it couldn't be done with some other peripheral happenings as well.
It would be a very bare bones event if it was just time attack.
Yeah.
And you would have to charge more to the participants to participate, of course, but it could be done. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, I don't know. We're seeing time attack. I definitely think we're seeing a time attack resurgence on the West Coast for sure. I mean, I think
I was going to ask you about that,
a few things pop up, and I hope we are. At least I think that's where it's headed. We'll have to see over the next couple of years. I think we're in the very early stages, but fingers crossed.
And just to
a resurgence from where it was just a few years ago, because it kind of flatlined for a bit.
Yeah. And that's where I was going to go real quick.
I mean, I'd say probably the last 5-7 years or so, I think.
Because we went into this weird, so just so everyone understands, original Redline died in like 2011. A resurgence, a second Redline came back in 2013 and ran for, I can't remember till when. I want to say like 2018. I could be wrong in that statement. And then with that said, so GTA and Redline both had very, very, very strong presence in that secondary Redline aspect in Southern California. There was a huge explosion. I mean, literally GTA and Redline were throwing events like weekends next to each other all across Southern California. We had literally had so many time attack events in a year. I mean, from when I was competing hardcore in time attack, it was insane because you would do so many time attack events and it was super cool. Then what we did end up and see is GTA went from it killed off its Pro-Am program, and went back to it's going to go board United States wide, national wide, which left it into a situation of only running one time attack event in Southern California. Redline died again. So now you're leaving only one time attack event in California as a whole. Grid Life transplanted the Laguna event. So now you had a NorCal and SoCal event, but only two California West Coast really events throughout the entire year. And we started seeing this divergent, it started crumbling on the West Coast where time attack cars essentially started dying off. And they were being not forced, but had to go to all these events further east. With this year, Chris, to kind of answer that question, this year, what we're seeing is Global Time Attack is going more so, I say, back to its roots. They're pulling back, or they're going west. So now we have an event up in the Northwest. We also have up in Washington. We have an event at I gotta pull up my schedule because I'm gonna forget what I'm gonna say. Thunder Hill,
Thunder Hill,
the Ridge,
and
then Buttonwillow, and then SCCA is coming on board, putting some in Las Vegas, and then of course Grid Life is at Laguna. So again, we're starting to see this build up on the West Coast again, where it's giving people enough opportunity. And as Kilgore mentioned earlier, if there's enough events, there's now a reason to build a time attack car to compete. Because as Chris pointed out in the very beginning, well, a standalone event is great. And I love concepts of standalone events, but no one's going to have a car built and ready for a standalone event if there's not a series of some kind pushing you to build a car in the first place. So to see these series put effort into the West Coast, that's a positive thing. Obviously, we have a bunch of East Coast guys who listen to this podcast as well. And so they're very happy with all of the stuff that Grid Life is doing, because Grid Life being Midwest, East Coast, anything east of the Rockies, they have that very much well covered. But with that said, Chris, we are seeing at the same time for the 2026, lesser events as a whole. So all the organizations are kind of rolling back and saying, we can't do 12 events a year. So what we're seeing is Grid Life is doing 6 events, and I think SCCA is doing 4. No. Well, they're doing an East Coast and West Coast tour. So
9, I think, total.
Yeah.
Or maybe 8 or 9. Yeah, 8 or 9 total.
With GTA doing 3.
Okay, so yeah, that's a huge pullback. That's for 2026. And SCCA, how is their Time Attack series? Is it pretty popular? Because I read about it. It looked like it was pretty good.
They are they're on the West Coast building stage right now. So as we usually say, if you get an opportunity, Chris, go and show up. Go show up to that Las Vegas event in February. Get out there and check it out. They are on the building scope on the West Coast. Again, east of the Rockies. They do have a substantial following there that allows them to really be prominent. But on the West Coast, that just hasn't been as popular.
Yeah.
I went to one of those I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the SCCA is a little, SCCA and NASA, and we don't cover a lot of NASA just because they don't really have a national program. It's all regional. SCCA is sort of a hybrid. Probably about 8, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out 8 years ago, somewhere around in that time frame. That was sort of when the SCCA national office officially said, you know what, we are going to start investing in a national time attack time trial program. Up until then, it had just been regional, right? Each region would put on they would host their own time trials at their local tracks. Maybe you would see, 3 or 4 regions say, hey, you've got a track, we've got a track, this other region has a track, we've got 3 tracks, let's kind of do a 5 event season and we'll all go in together, right? That still goes on, but it's all very clustered within those regions. And when I say a region, that's going to be state specific. Maybe you may even have a couple regions within a state.
With the NASA go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I will say this, kind of to your point, in terms of, I mean, I always kind of support SCCA from this standpoint in terms of the SCCA. There was one SCCA Nationals. They're now having a national championship, but they always had one national event that was their big one of the year. They were pulling 170 upwards to getting close, 190, maybe even 200 drivers to that one single event. And again, that is nothing but time trials. And so over the last few years, that has been the largest single attended event in time attack in the US.
And that's sort of catered totally grassroots, right? I mean, there's not really any big teams. It's just your normal track guy that likes to compete in time attack, and he builds his car to go to the track, and they have fun, right?
Yeah,
so it's super grassroots.
Yeah, if you look at the SCCA rule book, it is I would say it is directed more towards grassroots, because that their entry level class in terms of sport, what they call sport, very, very, very few modifications, right? You can maybe change springs. I don't even think you can do like camber plates. Yeah, like no aero, no, very few modifications, full interior. You can do safety modifications, but that's it, right? So again, nearly a stock car. But also their goal is, if you want to get into time trials, this is a great place to start, because you can bring your basically stock car and you can compete. And then the next class up has some minor modifications, but then they will go ultimately to an unlimited. So they run the gambit in terms of unlimited class cars, but then they also have a ton of just, somebody who has a stock BRZ with some wheels and tires and some brake pads and something like that. Absolutely, come out and you can have a place to come play. And so they really cater to more entry level, whereas Grid Life and Global Time Attack are more of the Redline style, in terms of you've got to show up with a pretty sophisticated car to compete.
And you got to be fast. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
Chris, in our closing conversation here, throw us out a couple of your most happy, amazing, maybe interesting memories of your time throughout Redline.
Oh my goodness. Put me on the spot. So it's a bit of a blur. I remember the days when Nads was around was crazy. I mean, we had some events in Vegas that, wow. And my SEMA time with Nads back in the day was all a blur. But enough about him. Let's see. I brought him up again just because you said that some of the most crazy times was with him. Let's see. But just like I said, when I drove into Laguna Seca, we did our first Laguna Seca event on a large scale. That was something else. But the journey of it itself, I mean, there were times in Redline too when I can remember the first time we went to SEMA and we were seeking sponsorship help to run our events because we thought maybe we could get some tire companies or some larger companies to help, throw us a bone and help us run these events. And nobody even knew what Time Attack was. I mean, we had to explain what Time Attack racing was. And we had run a couple of really big events. So we thought, yeah, we're doing all right. Everybody knows, we go to SEMA and go, yeah, we're Redline Time Attack. They're like, Tom, what are you talking about? So we ended up spending that first year at SEMA just educating people what Time Attack was. And then when we came back the next year to SEMA to try to promote ourselves and get sponsorship, everybody knew who we were. And everybody came to our table. And that was a really, really good feeling when people would approach us and come to us and say, hey, we really want to be involved with Time Attack. It was a very satisfying moment. Everybody at Redline, we all felt like we were accomplishing something. And that was a great feeling. Like we were helping create a sport that really didn't exist in North America. It was a great feeling of, actually doing something that people like to do and leaving some kind of, we really felt it would leave some kind of legacy behind. So that was a good feeling with Redline. And of course, there was all sorts of cool stuff that we did. We rented cars when we went to tracks and we put the rental cars on track and we returned them to the rental. The very first year the Camaro came out, we rented a Camaro and we took it to the track. And when we dropped it off, every single light in the dash was on. And, and I told the guy, I said, so we checked off every box for the insurance and everything, so we're good, right? And he looked at the car and he goes, yeah, you're good. And so that was fun. That was fun, beating on rental cars and having our little rental car challenges. But having the teams come and just the interest that the teams the teams that showed up that ran, it was great. And it was and one memory the last memory that really stands out is when we did the NASCAR event at VIR and we shared the NASCAR event and all these professional cars were on the track. They had different levels of events. They had NASCARs and they had the challenge cars and they're all BMWs, Porsches, Mercedes, and then the NASCARs. And then it was time for the Redline cars to come and do their practice session. And we were up in the booth and the cars that came on track were literally these, like I said, the Sylvia with mismatching body panels and just cars that looked like they were put together in someone's garage. And they started going around the track and everybody in the booth was like, what's going on here? Why are these cars on the track? These cars are race cars? And it seemed so embarrassing. And then all of a sudden the time started coming in and the beat up cars that were on the track for Redline were putting down the fastest qualifying laps of the day and everything changed. The people in the booth were like, these guys are beating us. They're fat. How is that possible? So that was a really great memory. And that was what Time Attack to me was. It was you put it together, you brought it, you got it going, and you were faster than everybody else no matter what they drove. So that was a really, really good feeling. So that was a good memory.
Man, yeah. I bet. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of good memories that I have for Redline. I definitely had my fill. I had some fun, and I can only imagine being around in the bare bones start of it. Must have been such an amazing feeling, and then to build it up to something as great as it was, man, what an amazing accomplishment for you and that team. I know that all of us here are more than happy that you took that effort, that you took that initiative and made those things happen, because with that, it allows the things that we have done and what we have loved to occur. So we appreciate everything that you've done for the sport, Chris. And I think that everyone listening to this podcast can have a great deal of love for you and everything that you have done and poured into Time Attack to make it successful.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, it was never the intent to have that. It was just having great track days and great fun, and providing a series for people who are diehard track guys to, put down their fastest lap, just like we started with the little race boxes back in the day. At the end of the day, it was just a venue for us to show who was the fastest of the fast. And, that's all we wanted.
And still
I think we
doing
got
it today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mark, when did you start Time Attack racing exactly? What year did you start?
That's a good question. I think my first, so I started off with my 2005 Subaru, but I didn't, my 2006 Subaru, and I think I did it in 2008. That was my very
Okay.
first track day was in 2008. And then
So that was pretty much at the height of Redline.
yeah, it rapidly progressed. And one of the big things that pushed me into Time Attack was going to those events. Like that is
Oh,
at
okay.
that pinnacle of Time Attack, being able to read the articles from Super Street Magazine about Super Lap Battle. A buddy of mine who actually from Eastside Muffler, Joe, he used to
Oh,
compete
yeah.
at those events and in Redline. So, I was in the very early stages back in high school. I was a drag race guy. It was my Civic, and he was always asking me when I was going to go make a turn. And so when I decided to get a new car for my Civic, I got a Subaru, and I said, well, got a car that can turn now. So let's go do this. And that's kind of where the path it led me. And through the help of my buddy Joe, it got me really into tracking, got me on track and doing those things. And, just started going, and little trickle, little competition. Next thing you know, you're at a Time Attack event. Yeah, just how it goes.
And then a couple years later, your Subaru is a purpose-built Time Attack car only.
Yeah. Track monster, full non-ability to do anything else except for go around track as fast as it possibly could.
Yeah.
Until the engine blows.
And you did. You did. You were one of the fastest. So
we
made it
tried.
happen.
We tried. Yeah. We did our best. And I think one of the things I can always say, looking back at that time, was I'll always say this, and just something for the viewers out there. I love guys that show up and can do everything themselves, and that's amazing. I'm not that guy. I'm never going to be that guy. I can't show up and do the alignment and the tuning and prep the car and get it perfect. I'm a guy that's like, I'm going to build a team, and that's just how I am. And I pride myself on the ability that through great friendships, I was able to build the perfect Time Attack team to go do the job. That's what we did. We built a great team, and that's why we were able to be successful. So
nice. And that's what Time Attack is all about too. Yeah,
for sure.
It's perfect.
Well, I think Jager and I will speak for the Time Attack community, and I will echo what Jager said. We will thank Chris for all of his efforts. Obviously, everything that we're doing today is in part because of what you and the other guys at Redline Time Attack put into it. You were able to build that so quickly. So thank you. And you obviously, even as the random guy who showed up and said you changed my life. I think that you guys did that for a lot of people here in the U.S., allowing us to do Time Attack, read about Time Attack, get interested in Time Attack way back when, and now we are still obsessed with it even to today. So It was great to have you on the show. I learned so
Thanks.
much. This was cool. This was totally awesome.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad I could share some of the history of it. I mean, I know a lot of people don't know a lot about the history of Time Attack, and there's so much more to it. Of course, we just kind of glossed the surface of it, but generally, I think we covered the meats and bones of it. So, hopefully, everybody can get an idea of sort of where Time Attack came from and how it progressed to where it is today. And I think it's just changed nothing for the better. Like you said, I can't wait to go to the Grid Life event in Lagoon and see what kind of changes they've implemented. Because the base of it needs to change with the times, absolutely, to
sure.
make it still relevant, of course. But
Yep.
but thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk about it. It's great.
Hell yeah,
absolutely, man. Yeah. Look forward to having you out. I think it'd be a ton of fun. Jager sent me some old Redline Time Attack videos that he had laying around or maybe on YouTube. I think we're gonna have to maybe cut up a couple of those, maybe like make some small clips and throw them back up on our Instagram, just kind of give people an idea of what it was what it was like back in the day. And I think a lot of people, it'll bring back some nostalgia for a lot of people for sure.
Yeah, there were some great ones. I hope, especially the ones at Willow Springs too. There were some great ones. Like I said, we had a whole team follow us around for a season or two, just making videos of every event, and they were great. They came out fantastic. Pretty funny too.
Sure.
They're almost more comedy than racing, but it's good to watch.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, definitely check out our Instagram page. That's Perfect Lap Podcast on Instagram. We will throw up some of these old videos when this episode comes out. You can also check out our website at perfectlappodcast.com. If you want to email the show and get in touch with Jager and I, you can do that at maximum@perfectlappodcast.com. If you guys have questions, if you guys want more info on any of the events that are going on or need to get in touch with us, or you guys have some individuals that you think you'd be interested in us having on the show, absolutely hit us up on Instagram or through email at maximumattack at perfectlappodcast.com. As always, we hope you enjoyed this episode with Chris Willard. It was so much fun listening to him and reminiscing about the early 2000s and where Time Attack got its start. For all you time attackers out there, keep pushing, go fast, take chances. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.